You're listening to A Deeper Dive, a part of the Winsight Podcast Network.
Why are restaurants adding service fees all the time? Hello, this is Jonathan Mays, Editor-in-Chief of Restaurant Business, and in this week's episode of A Deeper Dive, I speak with Scott Lawton, the CEO and co-founder of the Bartaco chain. Bartaco operates 27 locations, specializing specifically in, you guessed it, tacos. Lawton talks about how the chain was founded and discusses its current growth plans. We talk about the lure of tacos and why they're so popular among restaurant chains these days, and I ask him about customer loyalty and how the chain has been able to build it among its diners of late. But we talk extensively about service charges, which have grown in popularity in restaurants and many other industries for that matter. Scott discusses his reluctance to add them to one of his restaurants and why the chain ultimately gave in and may have to add them elsewhere. We're talking tacos and service charges on A Deeper Dive this week, so please have a listen. All right, we're here with Scott Lawton. Scott, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Jonathan. Thanks for having me. Good to see you again.
Yeah, nice to see you. So what's going on with Bartaco?
We're moving along. You know, we've opened 3 more restaurants this year, and we got 3 more to go. We're opening one next week in Brookline, Mass. The new openings have all been very successful for the last year or so. So we're feeling good. Customers are still loving what we're doing, and the restaurants are still busy. So we feel really grateful.
Yeah. For people who don't know about Bartaco, could you tell us a little bit about the concept?
Sure. It started 14 years ago in Port Chester, New York. Really one of the first full-service taco restaurants that was really dedicated to tacos. So that idea of a full-service taco restaurant was not really a thing back when we did this. And it was sort of the brainchild of Andy Forsheimer, Sasha Marbatutz, and myself. It was kind of based on a real estate play. We found this really cool space down in Port Chester on the water, and Sasha had been toying around with these ideas of this lifestyle brand that sort of captured a vacation and made you feel like you were transported, but in an affordable and sort of healthy way. So we had been playing with this idea forever, and it had all sorts of iterations, but it ended up being Bartaco. And we opened it in the dead of winter. Expected really not to do much in sales, and there were lines out the door. It really resonated with the customers. So we were already, well in the process of growing the Barcelona restaurant group. And this was kind of a side gig. And we suddenly realized we might have lightning in a bottle here. So we started opening more in Connecticut and then Atlanta. And now we have 27 locations in, I think it's 12 states and also the District of D.C. So we are kind of, we're growing at a fairly rapid clip for us. I mean, not the way some people are, but 6 or 7 restaurants a year, and trying to do great real estate and trying to maintain that level of quality and fresh food and fresh squeezed drinks and vibe and building to the neighborhoods and really trying to fit in. So that's been a really fun experience trying to grow this brand.
Yeah. So tacos are it's like really, it's a very hot item in restaurants right now, basically spanning, running the gamut of service styles in the restaurant space. But, we just seen this idea of these, of sort of essentially higher end or taco concepts just sort of really explode. What is it about tacos that kind of resonate with consumers?
I think there's the old classic American taco, which was all we knew for the last 60 years, and it was great because it's fun to eat, and it's got different textures, and great flavor delivery method is the taco shell. I think that's where it starts. But then you look at sort of how, Latin influence has really grown here in the United States and continues to grow. I mean, Modelo is now the number 1 selling beer, and tequila's overtaken vodka. So we're seeing this movement here in the United States towards flavor, towards Latin flavored spice, fruit, all of these types of things that the American palate really wasn't used to, I don't think, until recently. So that's helping. There's also just some sort of healthful benefits, believe it or not, with tacos, depending on the ones you're eating, of course. But, they're gluten-free if you're eating a corn shell. And we can play with a lot of ingredients. So you're really eating protein and veggies in a gluten-free shell, which is probably better than a processed bun and cheese and, all those types of things. So, and again, I say it's depending on the taco you're eating, but we found that our clientele really loves the bold flavors, but also sort of the cleaner nature of the food to some degree, we have a largely female crowd and younger crowd, and this really fits with their lifestyle, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it kind of goes real well. It really does go well. Tacos do really go well with sort of an experiential, an experience where it's, it actually goes well, frankly, and, for delivery and other, and takeout as well, which is interesting. But I think that, going out and having some drinks with some tacos kind of fits with where a lot of consumers have been going of late, to me. That's what so it just really, really works quite well. And you've got some pretty interesting tacos on your menu as well, do you not?
Oh, yeah. We played around with the rules. I didn't want to try and recreate Mexico. That's not what Bartaco was. Because frankly, we couldn't do it as well as they could. The way that they do an al pastor and just the fresh local ingredients that they have there are different. So we really tried to be more sort of in the spirit of the food, which was, finding great ingredients and figuring out ways to make really flavorful bites. So we have a duck taco, we have a crispy oyster taco, we have a sort of a pork belly taco, which is almost like burnt ends. But we have, lots of different fun proteins that we know we can execute at a really high level and keep people interested. And we're always rotating and changing and playing, and we try and keep it updated and different so that the customers, we have a high frequency with our guests. Our average customer comes 8 times every 6 months. So we know that we want to kind of, we want to keep the favorites around, but we also want to bring in some different flavors. So we have secret tacos that people know about every month and things like that. And we keep it interesting. And it doesn't hurt that we have the best margarita around with a fresh squeezed lime for every drink. And, that makes a big difference. So it's all part of this sort of communal style of eating that our customers really like. We learned that doing Spanish tapas restaurants, the idea of communal. So we really brought that to sort of the Mexican experience and did small plates with chopsticks so you could share and put everything in the middle and made it fun so everybody could eat together.
Mm-hmm. 8 times every 6 months. That's quite a bit for a full service concept, is it not?
Yeah, I'm thrilled that I even know that stat, to be honest with you, because through the ordering with your phone, we now have so much more data on our customers than probably any other full service restaurant. So we're able to sort of track and see how our customers are using us, and very specifically. And when we found that stat, that was one where I said, wow, we really have become part of people's lives. And we've seen, Portchester being the original restaurant, has been there 14 years, and it has been up 6 to 10% in sales every year except for one. And you probably know that one, but that shows. We just, people keep coming. They like it. We become part of their lives. We're part of the way they like to eat. Their kids love it. Girls love to get together and have drinks together. Whatever it is, we've just kind of become part of the fabric of the communities we're in.
Yeah. Any secret to building that kind of loyalty?
There's lots of secrets to that. I wouldn't say that they're all secrets. I mean, there's the basic standards of good service and high quality food and a fun place to be. You have to execute that every single day. And then there's a lot of really paying attention to the things that customers can't articulate, but they feel. So getting really deep into sort of like, we don't have queso dip and we don't have sour cream, and we have things that make you walk out going, oh, I'm probably not coming back there for a while, but it was good, So we try and really make the food a little cleaner so you feel okay when you leave. we also pay a lot of attention to the music. We pay attention to the plants. We pay attention to just all the little details that make the place feel good. We're very much attuned to that. We listen to our customers very carefully.
Mm-hmm. All right. So I can talk about tacos and loyalty and margaritas all day. I do have a question that I need to ask you on this. Now, one of the things that we've seen a lot in the restaurant space of late is these surcharges or service fees for various reasons, either healthcare fees or just service charges or service things. Do you have any surcharges in any of your restaurants?
So we are piloting it in Denver right now, and not because we wanted to. It just became sort of the math was not working. They've eliminated the tax tip wage. I think it's $15.87 an hour right now for minimum. It's going up to $17.29 in January. And when you plug that math into just our regular prices and everything else, we went from profitable to flat, or maybe even not profitable. So the math didn't work anymore. And the real challenge is, do you start charging, instead of $3 for a taco, $7? I mean, that just doesn't make sense. And what really became strange about it is we're a pooled house, so everyone gets a full minimum wage plus a cut of the tips. So all of a sudden, when this law went into place, our staff was making $47 an hour, and we weren't making money. Our labor went from 35% to 43% or 44%. So suddenly our staff got a massive raise, and we went flat. So here we're trying to figure out, how do we do this? And we really wanted to make sure our staff still made a professional wage, like a good, strong living wage. They were making in the range of $32 to $33 an hour before that. So how do we get them there, but also have a profitable business? That was the question. So the service charge really was the only thing we could find that made sense. And so adding the service charge, basically, we have sort of an 80-20 split on the service charge. So there's a service charge that you read about when you check in on the phone that you're going to be charged. And 80% goes to the house, and 20% actually still adds to the tip pool, which brought the team back to the number that they were at, essentially. And it was able to let us divert some of those funds, though they are heavily taxed, some of those back into the restaurant, which gave us the sort of opportunity to equalize that. What was a happy surprise was we still saw that customers were tipping around 9 to 10%, still adding a tip for great service and great food, which gave a little boost to the servers, which we were happy about. So as scared as we were to do it, we didn't know another way without making the prices look outrageous. One of the reasons why I've never opened the Bartaco in Manhattan is because I can't charge reasonable prices, and it doesn't make sense to sell tacos at exorbitant prices to me. So, but since we've done it, the staff wages are well over $25 an hour, around 30, depending. Guests are still tipping. We've had very limited complaints. We've seen guest sentiment has stayed the same, and traffic has been stable. So this has been since April that we've been doing it. I'm not saying we're going to do it everywhere, because we're not, but when we're put in a position where the laws have changed in a way that our math model doesn't work, this has been the solution, the best thing we could come up with. And so far, it seems to be working. So far, I mean, honestly, the customer's still paying more, but when you raise wages to a certain point, it's got to get passed through somehow. And this was our most creative way to think about it. We hate fees. Trust me, we're getting them from the digital world all the time, and we are not fans. And I'm not a fan personally of it. So this was a very heavy decision we had to make. But so far, it's been going okay.
It sounds though like you also, not just from a cost profitability standpoint, But a bunch of your competitors had already started doing it? Was that, or the restaurants in your area had already?
We were the first ones to do it. We waited. We took a beating for a couple months, and we just kind of wanted to see how the market was going to react and what people were going to do. And we certainly didn't want to be the first one throwing a fee on. So we waited to see, and we did see it was happening everywhere in some way, shape, or form. And I think they're still figuring it out, a lot of restaurants in Denver. We did a market study first before we got in and did it.
Mm-hmm. Now, how did the servers react when you did that? Because you went kind of from $30 an hour to 40 to back down to 30 in situations like that. What kind of reaction from them?
We don't have servers, so Bartaco had set up a situation through COVID where we had eliminated the server, and we had salaried service leaders that take care of the restaurant, of the guests. So really, everyone who's tipped is a food runner, drink runner, cook, dishwasher. So that kind of shielded us. I think we would have had a lot more fallout had we had servers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But you said customers didn't really react. That's interesting. I mean, is it? Do you think that is because? Did you? I mean, let me say. When at that restaurant, did you give them? Are you letting your customers know that this fee is going to be applied? How does that work?
So, you order with your phone at our restaurant. So if you tap or scan the QR code, it comes up. And once you're registering your credit card, or you may already be a customer of ours, the first page it takes you to lets you know that there is a service fee that's going to be attached at the end. There's also an opportunity to leave a tip if you would like. It shows you that in the beginning. So they're made aware of it. And then they get the check at the end, they'll see it. So we have had very few complaints. Like I can count on one hand since April, which I was shocked by. I thought it would be a lot more significant, to be honest with you. Part of it, I think, though, is it's happening so much in that market right now that they're having to accept it, Mm-hmm. We're going to see that in other markets soon, like DC.
Really? Yeah, I mean, DC has a similar situation, does it not?
Yeah, we're moving towards that right now. And I haven't done anything there yet, but we are looking at our options. So it's we've definitely seen a significant, when this happens, it's a 500 to 700 basis point hit on the prime cost. So you've got to figure something out,
Yeah. I mean, we do know that we're seeing a rapid increase, certainly in the DC market and in other markets where you see these situations where, when they eliminate the tip credit, we're seeing, a rapid increase in the use of service fees. I'm in Minnesota and we see a similar situation here.
Yeah, you've had that situation there for a long time, actually.
Oh yeah. I pay service fees all the time. Yeah. But it was not common. I would say it was not as nearly as common a year ago. And I think that the increase we've seen an increase in wages, minimum wages, real wages, and labor costs over really the past 2 years. And I think it's sort of forced operators to take steps like this more aggressively. And you actually see it at all kinds of restaurants at this particular point. So it's far more common than it just was even just a year ago.
You're realizing that labor is just going to be a larger component of our prime cost than it ever has been. That's just the reality. So now, I think as an industry, a lot of us are waking up to how do we get more efficient with our cost of goods and our operating expenses and everything else. Let's make sure those are as tight as they can be to make room for that. So there has always been, I think, a little bit of fat on the other side that we're all looking at now, which is probably a good thing. But if cost of goods go up significantly, like right now, luckily food prices are fairly stable and not terrible. But we're going to be in trouble if that happens, when that happens.
Yeah. I do believe, I agree. I think labor as a percent, I think labor is just going to be harder to find than it was just a few years ago, in perpetuity, absent something drastic to fix the supply of labor in the United States. And I don't believe automation, and certainly for full service concepts or any service oriented, I just don't think that automation is going to fix enough of it to to affect that in any real degree. A lot of people probably will disagree with me on that, but I really don't think automation is going to save the day, and so it's just probably going to force operators to think outside, and a little bit differently. And thus we have, service fees and probably see a lot more of it going forward for sure.
Yeah, I mean, there's some of that. We're starting to see a real reaction towards customers, towards just fees in general and tipping at the gas station or whatever it may be. All these things are getting thrown in, and you've got these certain POS companies that are trying to take full advantage of that and add every kind of fee they can think of, and so we're feeling that as operators right now too. I mean, I'm not, because I stay away from those certain companies, but it's scary.
Yeah. Now it's one thing interesting about the fees is that, I mean, in reality, what they end up paying, what the customer ends up paying in a situation like that, it would be the same with the fees as it would be, like, let's say if you decide we are going to raise the cost of a taco or margarita. I mean, the end result is still the same, is it not? So what is the mentality that, the fee is better than a higher cost of taco?
Well, for what we did, ultimately the customer wasn't paying that much more, because what we did, if you think about it, was we had to give a raise to everybody on their hourly pay. So we ended up taking it out of some of the tip by creating a service fee that really essentially was the tip, so it felt almost cost neutral to those customers, other than if they decide to throw on an extra 10% or whatever. But the bill, we just had that, we got pushed in one direction, so we had to move in the other, sort of. That was how we were thinking about it at the time. There's others that are just throwing on fees now. There's people that are putting on a credit card charge fee now, or they're, things that restaurants used to just absorb. So those are gratuitous extra fees, if you ask me. But the way we did it with this fee was we reduced the tip basically and increased their hourly wage. So that was kind of how we tried to play the game. Now, granted, we got hit with a lot more taxes, so it's not nearly as profitable, but that was the play there.
Mm-hmm. Now, do you see the tip is actually more? Is it still relatively obligatory, the actual tip, or do you think that it really does go to your better service?
I think tipping has just become totally habitual to a large degree. I think when you go to I think people will add an extra tip for over and above, but I think they add a pretty high tip for average to not so great. So I've seen that change. I'm curious, America is a tipping culture, and I'm curious if with all of this, if this is going to change. If it's just going to be more like the European model, where it's lower tipping is just an add as an over and above, and everything's baked into the fee, sort of. Part of that makes me sad, especially for white tablecloth and great restaurants, because I think there's something we do really well here, which is really serve people, and I think the tipping model has always helped with that. But there's also some real inequity that comes from the tipping model, specifically how the kitchens get compensated and things like that. So I'm not giving you a right or wrong answer here. I'm just telling you, some of the differences I see. So.
Yeah. I probably would prefer a system in which a tip is I don't, where a tip is for better service. That's, if you ask me, that's what I probably would prefer. I would like the option to be able to give I would like to be able to give a tip for really good service, or, for whatever reason. Yesterday, I gave a substantial tip at a food truck because I felt that that dude deserved it. And, that would be, I would like to have the option as a customer. If it becomes obligatory, then it's obligatory. And then I don't feel like I have the option. I feel like I have to do it. Otherwise, somebody is going to consider me a bad tipper. Things like, and I mean, to me, that's probably my preference. It would be interesting to see where this goes.
It's kind of weird. Like, they've got these handhelds where you got to pay at the table, and the server will hand you the handheld and stand over your shoulder while you're filling it out, because they need the handheld back because they got to go, because it's also their ordering device, But how weird does it feel having to tip somebody who's over your shoulder looking at the percentage like that? I mean, that's not the way it should be. So there's still a lot to figure out.
Oh yeah, for sure. Totally. Scott, this was great. Really appreciate you joining me on the podcast. This was wonderful.
Yeah, happy to be here, Jonathan.
And that should do it for this week's episode of A Deeper Dive, which was edited, as always, by Kimmy Spoons Kazmarek. Artwork by Nico Hines. You may subscribe to this podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or anywhere else you get your podcasts. I'm Jonathan Mays, your host, podcast producer, and the editor-in-chief of Restaurant Business. Thank you for listening.